We're covering the power of language, intention, and beliefs, three big concepts, and discussing how powerful they are. But these concepts are so big that we can't contain them all in a single episode. So we're breaking it up into three separate episodes. Today, we're covering how language can play a big role in how we perceive the world at large and our inner worlds. Next time, we'll cover the power of intention as it drives everything we do from an energy perspective. Then in 2 weeks, we'll talk about how changing beliefs can help you move forward swiftly to prevent them from sabotaging your efforts. Intention and belief are inherently intertwined to shift beliefs. Combining all three will bolster the odds for making your goals happen. Stick with us until the end of the video for some suggestions about how to use these concepts to empower your life. Let's start the conversation.
Hey, Mystics. If you're new here, welcome. If you're returning, welcome back. I'm Lisa Stewart.
I'm Susie Parker Goins.
And I'm Kai Bertrand. Welcome to the Mystic Mosaic Podcast. We're here to help clarify, illuminate, normalize, and encourage you as you develop your gifts so you can confidently build a sustainable lifestyle for you, your family, and even your career. We're providing information to you to use as a launching point for your own spiritual journey. We are not doctors, and we won't be giving medical advice. Plus, we won't be giving free readings. Information provided here is for educational purposes only.
Thank you, Kai. Language can play a big role in how we perceive the world at large and our inner worlds. Language is the primary tool for expression and communication. There's also visual communication, visual images, symbols, and sigils, my specialty. Stanford University talks about how language is a lens into our behavior. Words shape our reactions, our reality, and our communities. Linguists analyze how certain speech patterns correspond to particular behaviors, specifically how language can, and from a business point of view, impact people's buying decisions. Today, we're talking about the power of language and breaking down a few key concepts for you to use in your own life. Susie, you want to lead us off?
I sure will. Thanks, Lisa. So, the power of language. I ask you to listen to what you hear, either what you say to yourself or what you hear around you. A well thought out affirmation can make all the difference to you when you're meeting your goals or trying to shift your world around you. And we'll touch on that later. But first off, I want you to look and think about those things you hear in your day-to-day self-talk. Are you uplifting yourself? Are you calling yourself names? How is that impacting you? And you can shift it around. Just a little more attention to what you're doing, help you set those intentions for shifting around. And it can also help when you're doing, well, your soul work. You're moving along on your journey. Lisa, what's your take on this?
You're right. We do need to be mindful about how we talk to ourselves day to day. And boy, can that name calling sneak in where we're not even thinking. So we need to be mindful. I mean, because there are times when I've caught myself going, if I'm like tripping up a step, I'm like, God, idiot. I'm like, that's not nice. Who else would call me an idiot? Well, let's not answer that.
Well, there's that meme, how you talk to yourself. How do you talk to people, other folks, your friends, and how do you talk to yourself and making that comparison? And I find that there's kind of a big disparity, a big separation point there about how you talk to yourself. So, Kai, how
No,
about
yeah,
you?
as you were talking, it was reminding me of and this is just typically me, right? Like a friend of mine, she was actually a dancer, and but she was a great dancer. She wasn't There was nothing wrong with her, her dancing. The problem is, like, she was just not a great walker. So she would trip all the time. And I'm like, okay, dancer, let's go. I was like,
Okay, Twinkle Toes.
yeah, and it was like, I mean, and I never I never said that to her just to make her feel bad or anything like that. It was just like, like I know it's you. I accept you. It's fine. Just as long as you don't hurt yourself, it's fine, whatever. But as you were talking, that's what kind of ran through my mind that, I saw this image of her like tripping up the stairs and I was like, so
Yeah.
um, but and that's part of it is like with the power of it, the power of language is it's not just what you say, it's like how you say it and what you say it with.
Hmm.
So I mean, there's a difference between me going, "Good job, dancer," versus, "Okay, dancer, let's go." It's like
Yeah.
there's a complete different thing. There's a complete different energy that goes with it.
Yeah.
And so that's the kind of stuff that we're looking at. It's not always about the words per se,
Hmm.
even though it is, because
Hmm.
words by themselves have power.
Hmm.
And then when you add the energy of the words that you're speaking or the tone that you're adding to it, that makes all the difference. It's like
Yeah.
exponential difference.
Yeah. No, you're absolutely right. And as a matter of fact, that's how many of my friends get their nicknames. Is they may end up doing something that's contrary to their skill set. Like, oh, I would probably call your friend Twinkle Toes, just because she, doesn't walk well. But I mean, everything's a skill set. When it's funny, Andrew and I will be walking out of the apartment one day and we come out the back door, and for whatever reason, I trip. And he's like, "Oh, first day with the new feet?" And I'm like, "Yeah, they're rentals." So it's the energy behind what he's saying is meant to be fun loving and humorous, not to be cruel or malicious.
Yeah, the energy behind it. I mean, that can bleed over into the intention aspect of it, which is next week's podcast. But it's really important to look to see um, not only what the energy is behind what you're saying, um, you can also see how it's going to land.
Mhm.
Humor is kind of, we'll talk about humor in a bit, but
Mhm.
you got to look to see where you want it to land. So if somebody else feels put down by it, it's time to look at it and see if that works. So when we're talking about the energy behind language, let's actually look at the words we use with it. A lot of times I hear folks um, introduce some statement. They'll start a statement with, "Well, I'm weird, but," and honestly, I think weird is cool. I don't necessarily need to have normal all the time. Something I said yesterday to a guy's like, "Honey, normal's just a setting on the dryer," and he thought that was so great. So let's look at enjoying who we are and using that language to play that up. So saying there are some words that will bring it down, that will reduce that energy to a resigned energy to it. Like I'm trying to do this,
Mhm.
or I need to do this. I want to do this.
Mhm.
So my thought is, why aren't you doing it? I counter that a lot. And so I ask folks to shift it around. Another set of words that I shy away from, and this is something I learned from when Joe and I went to marriage camp 30, 36 years, a really long time ago. It's using the words always and never.
Mhm.
And that was in the context of a relationship. You always do this.
Mhm.
You never do that. And we have learned to like not use those words. So it applies to yourself though. It's
Mhm.
like when you are setting up this stuff,
Mhm.
what is the language you're using? Lisa, you've got your hand. I think
It's,
that's our
it's,
is
it's
that our
voice.
understood thing? I want to say something. Yeah.
I actually want to go back to the try, need, want, wish aspect that you were referring to initially. And that is for me, when I found myself saying those things, I found myself it was almost like a purgatory, a stasis of there's actually no movement in trying. There's no movement in wishing, right? So when you go back and say, well, why can't you? Right? Why don't you rather? Um, then it's a matter of like, okay, well, why don't I? And when I was growing up, my dad would say, here are the next steps that you can take to make that happen. You're not going to be successful overnight, but you're going to take steps to get there. That's going to get you out of that stasis, that purgatory of wishing and wanting.
I like that. What, folks say, I can't do this. Why not? Like you just said, I appreciate too that your dad said, well, what can you do?
Hmm. Hmm.
Here's what you can do.
Hmm.
It's certainly from his perspective, but you've adapted that to it's like, what is your perspective, what you feel you can do? And that's what I appreciate about other mentors of mine. They said, okay, here's what we can do about it. Cool. Okay.
Yeah, the word can't drives me nuts sometimes because it's well, I can't do that. And when I ask people, like, well, why can't you? And then, then they sit there for a minute and give me this litany of excuses about why I can't do this and I can't do that because of this and that and da 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 da. And I'm like, okay. And so, what I've done in the past, especially when they give me this really long list, I go, oh, yeah, you're right. You can't. I guess you can't. You're absolutely right. And then they go, what do you mean I can't? I'm like, I just reiterated what you said.
Hmm. You're a mirror.
Yeah. I was like, so if you're telling me you can't, I'm just agreeing with you.
Hmm.
And now you're upset? And they go, oh. I was like, yeah. So you actually can. You just choose not to
Right.
for whatever reason. And some of your reasons
Yeah.
might be absolutely legitimate.
Hmm.
But the thing is that the point is you have to continue to take steps in whatever way you can
Hmm.
to keep it moving forward in some way, in some form. Because if not, yeah, you stay in one place and all you're basically standing still.
Hmm.
You're reinforcing that energy. It's like when you do rituals,
Hmm.
you're clearing the space, you're setting in, calling in the energy for this space. It happens in churches, it happens, outside rituals, but you're reinforcing whatever language you're putting out there. I can't do this. Okay. And like you say, okay, you can't. You're just reinforcing it. And then they go, you're supposed to tell me everything I want to hear. It's like, no, no,
Yeah.
no.
And I think that's the sign of a good friend too, or a good colleague. Somebody that becomes entrusted to you becomes that mirror and says, okay, you can't. Oh, and I think that's what I would want my friends to do, is show me the mirror. If for whatever reason I decide something's not going to happen, I want you guys to stand up and remind me, well, it can, and here's why, or here's how, right? And I think the basis of understanding that, knowing that can't is really a block, and that if you want to learn how to move around that, is just start asking your friends, your colleagues, I'm looking into doing X, or I need to change Y. Where can I start? That's all you need to do.
Yeah, and questioning is important. I nope, profundity has left my head. I'm sorry.
It's okay.
So
No,
okay.
questioning the core belief down there is important, and we'll talk about core beliefs
Hmm.
in 2 weeks.
Hmm.
Yeah. But back to language, it's that thing about whatever you believe about yourself. So you can't do this, or I won't do that, or I don't do that, or I'll never do that.
Hmm.
Then you make that statement true.
Hmm.
Mhm.
And
Yeah.
even if it's something that you want,
Hmm.
like I've heard people say, oh, I really want to get that degree, but I'll never do it. And then in my mind, I'm thinking, you're right. You will probably never do it
Well,
because you've basically put a hard stop on that by saying that.
Hmm.
So in terms
s-
of language, we have to be really careful about the things that we say and how we think. And because a lot of times we take things for granted. We just kind of throw things out and think, oh, I don't really mean that. It's like, but you have to understand that it's not just you that's listening, it's the universe that's
Yeah.
listening to you.
Yeah.
So if you continue to say things like that, then the universe goes, "Oh, well, they're not actually interested in getting a degree, or they don't, because they said that
Yeah.
they'll never do it." So
Right.
So I think we've kicked around try, need, and want and all of that in this conversation here. And I want to just put out this, I don't know, caveat, but this thing is like we have said, I want to try this, but, and if we can throw in but to say, to ask the question about this is what I would like to do. How can I do that? It's just leaving it at that I can't hard stop. Then yeah, we create that energy of not being able to accomplish it. It's like I can't maybe right now,
Right.
but let
Yeah.
me look at these other things so that I can accomplish it later on.
Mhm.
Lisa?
Yeah. And I think to Kai's point, assumptions, right? I think we should look at assumptions as well when it comes to um, just flagrantly throwing out ideas and notions about either self-worth or achievements. And, there have been times back in my 20s, I thought to myself, oh, I don't know if I can start a business. Well, why not? I don't know. Well, why not? I don't know. Let me give it a few months. Let me give it another year. And I had to work through my emotional blocks to kind of deconstruct why it is I don't think I could start a business. And frankly, I look at the idea of if you are selling a product like a bar of soap, right? You're in business. And it can be as simple as that. It doesn't have to be a huge mammoth conglomeration shell company. It can be just as simple as I'm selling a single service and you're in business.
And to that I don't know point, it is a valid answer. That's what I've learned. This is a hard lesson in parenting that I have learned that sometimes I don't know is the answer,
Mm.
but that doesn't mean the door's closed.
Right.
It just means I don't know in this moment.
Mhm.
And we can go and travel through and figure out those blockages you're presenting for yourself.
Mhm. Mhm.
but that's another one though.
Yeah.
People always say like, "I don't know," and then they assume that, well, that's good enough. And I'm like, "Okay,
Right.
well, then go find out."
Yeah. Do your due diligence. Mhm.
Like
Yeah.
just
Yeah.
because you don't know, that doesn't necessarily mean that it's the end of the line.
Right.
Unless of course you want it to be, then that's
Mhm.
that's your choice. That's a choice that you're making.
Yeah.
Like you say, "I don't know," that means like you're essentially saying you don't know, you don't care, and you're done with it.
Mhm.
Is that what you're
Mhm.
saying?
Mhm.
Unless, I mean, because usually when I say I don't know, that usually means, okay, that means I need to go and figure out what that means or what that entails or what that's about or
Yeah.
whatever. So to me, that's an opening. Like if I don't know something,
Yep.
then then I do want to know. Like, and
Yeah.
yeah, then at that point, if it's something that I really cannot do, like there is a hard stop in there somewhere, at least now I know that.
Mhm.
I
Yeah.
never do the I don't know and just drop it. Some people do.
Yeah.
And I'm like, okay.
Yeah. Yeah. That's frustrating to me too. When people are like, I don't know. And I'm like, well, what are you going to do about it? Oh, I don't know. And it's like, do you not care? Are you apathetic about this? Or do you, or the nuance part is they're starting to entertain some self-limiting beliefs and they don't want to share them out loud because shame or guilt kind of, starts to
Well,
wiggle its way in there.
in my experience, it's been a trauma response.
Mhm.
So it is a loaded phrase that deserves attention. And, you were talking about assumptions. It deserves attention so that the assumptions are clarified
Mhm.
or explained and stuff. So sometimes it's a valid answer.
Mhm.
And then sometimes it is an excuse. So that's one of those, your mileage may vary with each one.
Yeah.
But we encourage asking questions. Ask questions of yourself, ask questions of your mentors, or shoot, ask the universe, and you'll get some answers.
Yeah. And
So
and challenge authority too while you're at it.
Oh, yes. Absolute. So, we talk about these words, while I choose to shy away from can't and don't know and all of this stuff, there are other strong words, stronger phrases that one can use, especially when it comes to setting intention and affirmations and stuff like that. Saying stating things, well, like you have it right now. So you have a goal, you set up a goal like, oh, I am looking at um improving my business. Of course, that for me is a goal, but that's really kind of nebulous. It doesn't really have anything specific to it, which is a reflection on me not understanding where I want to go with this right now. So that's why these work. But looking at things, stating things in such a way that with that power of repetition, you can shift the energy to have it be present. So I am successful at my business. Of course, that means I've got to go and look and see what successful means. But
Mhm.
I have, I don't know, I have what I need in order to have a happy life.
Mhm.
What other obviously I'm struggling on this.
Well, I had watched a YouTube video on someone who talked about it's kind of like a form of journaling. And so what she did is she actually wrote what she wanted as if it already happened. And she used, positive encouraging words.
Mhm.
So it would be like, I'm so I can't believe that I've made like $50,000 in a month, and I have this many clients, and my team is doing really awesome with my videos and
Mhm.
all that kind of stuff. And it was just very it was very up and very encouraging and very and she just like it's a way to use words and verbiage to make you feel good. And I think that that's part of what we're going for here. It's like in the power of language, it's like use words that actually make you feel good,
Yeah.
that uplift you, that make you feel like that you can do anything, you can
Mhm.
try anything, you can learn anything, you can research about more stuff, learn more things, and figure out what the next steps are, so
Yeah.
that you're not stuck in this place where you don't know,
Yeah.
and you don't know what to do, and you don't know what the options are. Use language that makes you feel encouraged, and um and lets you know that things are possible, because with the universe things are possible, anything is possible.
Yeah.
We live in an infinite universe.
Yeah.
And so your language and how the words you choose to use will dictate how you interact, not just with the world around you, but also with the energy of the universe.
Yeah. And Kai, to your point, I often use those methods as well. Like, I enjoy watching my YouTube subscriber channels grow, right? Things like that. And, at one point it'll reach 1,000, another point it'll reach 10,000. And I can't wait to see that happening because it's growing every day and people are enjoying the topics I'm putting out. They're enjoying my sense of humor. They're enjoying who I am as an individual. And, then suddenly that starts to make me feel worthy. And on top of that, we're also looking at the vibration that your body absorbs. So when you speak those out loud, especially, in that upbeat, positive manner, your body's going to go, yeah, this jives. I like where you're going with this. Likewise, if you're saying, God, I'm an idiot all the time, I can't do anything right, I will never be a good dancer, I always trip over my feet. Yeah, you know what? Your body's going to hear it, it's going to internalize it, and it's also going to hit your subconscious. And we all know that your subconscious, 95% of all of your activity and decision making happens in there. So it's going to be automatic. So you have to ask yourself, what do you want to be automatic? Do you want the upbeat, positive aspects of your life to be automatic, or do you always want to be, um, the Eeyore of the group that says, I can never, I will never, be those things. So yeah, that's super important.
I think self-talk is really important into breaking these old patterns that we have accumulated through our life. Lisa, you brought up how your affirmations are helping you improve your sense of self-worth.
Mhm.
We've got so much baggage. Some of us have an incredible amount of baggage so that the more we hear it, yeah, we're going to carry that forward. But as we shift into those more uplifting and positive statements about ourselves, and it's not always got to be about a platitude, something that everybody says. It's something that you know best about yourself, that resonates best with you.
Mhm.
And as you recognize your own self-worth, and you can continue to go. Yeah, that goes into using language to shift your beliefs, which we'll talk about in a couple of weeks. But we can touch on it a little bit, saying, yeah, it is impactful. So I want to give you that tool. We want to give you that tool of watching how you talk to yourself, paying attention to it, so that you can start to move forward on that path of breaking those blockages.
Mhm.
And blockages happen in a number of ways, right, Lisa?
Yes, Susie, they do. Blocking does happen inadvertently through fear or past trauma, or even through families passing their own beliefs onto their kids. Now, if I'm experiencing a block, it might mean that I am having an unhealthy relationship with my emotions. These blocks can manifest into detrimental effects that play out in our life: addictions, anger issues, mental
Mhm.
exhaustion, migraines, and headaches, right? And even a decreased
Mm.
lifespan. None of those bode well for a happy, healthy life. So, for me, when I want to release any emotional pain, I have to find a way to express myself and communicate effectively, whether it's releasing shame or guilt. And this is where I want to help people find the courage to create, to help remove those blocks. Finding the courage in anything is really going to be a beneficial life skill that we can all learn. Um, and for me, releasing that block usually comes through a form of meditation, which we can talk about later. But for me, making is a form of meditation.
Mhm.
Becoming, in the fine arts, through theater, acting, right? Through music, either performing or dancing or singing, or making something. Is it making a shirt or is it cooking a dish? For me, that's when I can start to see how successful I am in any of those endeavors and remind myself, yeah, I made a delicious pot of chicken soup. Yeah, that t shirt turned out really cool. I can't wait to show everybody. Am I out
Mhm.
trying to, split DNA? No. Am I out trying to be a rocket scientist? No. But for me, it's about cultivating an awareness for the strengths I already do have and the things I love doing. How about you guys? How do you feel?
Well, I don't feel like we all have to start from zero. And I appreciate that whole, work looking at your strengths. That's also redirecting your energy,
Mhm.
your attention to something that you've already got established with yourself. You know, making, yeah, making is really good. I was focusing my attention on body positivity. Oh, look, there's my right ankle. That was great. And so I've been able to expand on it.
Mhm.
And to to think that it's all going to happen all at once, it's not, because some of us have got so many big things. As I was talking to a client this weekend, I said, there's some people have this huge emotional heap on top of them. And to expect that somebody has a magic word that makes it all go away,
Mm.
no, it doesn't. You got to take it a little at a time. Give yourself that space in which you can shift that particular word or thought process, and then you can build on that. I think that's really, it may not be fast enough for those of us who are impatient.
Mm.
Uh, you know, it's just,
I'm like,
I'm not looking at anybody here.
But I think you
But
bring up a good point, Susie. And for me, especially coming out of the closet the last 3 years and being reassured that there's life after life. I'm like so excited. And the fact that we've chosen to come back to this trash planet to learn some life lessons puts everything in perspective for me. Then I realized,
Yeah.
oh, I'm here to learn a life lesson. So growing up in a dysfunctional family, having a narcissistic mother, moving through all that so I can teach others how to move through that as well. And so whenever an issue might come up, a confrontation with a colleague or a stranger that is toxic in nature, I have to like step back and retool and go, is this a lesson in the making or have I learned my lesson? Right. And for me, there's power in that. There's power in that recognition. There's power in knowing that I've worked through so much crap that, it's brought me to where I am. And I now have the confidence and the courage to move forward, but also know that I'm here for a lesson or two and to be aware of that and seek solace in that actually.
Yeah. And we could play out that scene where Kai makes it look all so easy, and then her response is,
I worked my tushy off to make it look that way, so it's really not as easy as everybody thinks.
yeah. So it's giving ourselves that grace to learn, and that's when we get into that comparing each other, comparing ourselves to other folks. I don't think I ever said I wish I were prettier or I wish I was as pretty as her, but there are a lot of comparisons we all make. And so let's play around with that idea of supportive language. Sorry, I took your topic, Kai.
No, it's okay. I mean, and the whole thing about comparing ourselves to others is something that we all go through. Like every single person, I don't care who you are, what you've done, what school you went to, who your daddy was, how much money you make, whatever. It
Mhm.
makes no difference. Everybody has compared themselves to another person at some point in time and felt like they were lacking.
Mhm.
Everybody. And so this, and it's, there's lots of reasons for it, societal, cultural,
Mhm.
you name it, it's a contributing factor. But the point is, at this point, we are taking control of that. We are becoming responsible for that and how we react to that.
Mhm.
Therefore, like, what we suggest, one of the things that we are looking at is to, when you find yourself comparing yourself to another person, that you stop doing that
Mhm.
because you are you. There's never going to be another you. They are them. Like they couldn't be you if they tried.
Yeah.
And no matter what you do, you will never be them. So your objective is to be the best you could possibly be. And
Mhm.
who gets to decide that? You.
Mhm.
Yeah,
So,
there's a quote from Oscar Wilde, and he says, "Be yourself, everybody else is taken."
Yeah.
That's gotten me through so much. So, yeah.
yeah. And
And
so when
one
you
other thing, I'm
go
sorry,
ahead, go ahead.
comparison can go both ways. I wish I were better, or somebody else saying, "Oh, you're not as good." So, comparison is something
Mhm.
that can happen everywhere.
Comparison is the thief of joy.
Yeah, it
I like
can
that.
be. And so, what we're trying to do here is encourage you to focus on, and what happens is when other people compare you to someone else, and
Mm.
we tend to internalize that kind of stuff.
Yeah.
Like, oh, well, so and so thought I wasn't as good. Or yeah, when I was growing up, for instance, I had a neighbor who, because I'm adopted, so I had a neighbor who actually knew my birth family. And so we were talking one day and she said, "Oh yeah, I know your family, and yeah, your other sister's prettier," is what she said.
Jesus.
I think I was 12, I think at the
Aw.
time.
God.
Oh yeah. That was
Oh,
brutal.
that's
That was,
that's crushing.
that was brutal. And and I was funny because I didn't know my birth family. And so I'm like, okay, well, and I've never seen her. I don't know, so I was just, but yeah, it was just like, well, it's nice to know that I'm not as pretty as somebody I don't even know. It's like, wow.
God, Kai.
So
I had once upon a time, a couple times in high school, girls would come up to me and say, I like your new dress, but it would look better on me. And I'm like,
yeah, nice. So, with all that we've had to live through, and um in various forms and phases, growing up, through our jobs, whatever it is, right? All the things that we've all had people who have said stuff like that to us. The trick is, we don't need to say those things to ourselves.
nope.
So, using supportive language and
Mhm.
focusing on the positive aspects about yourself, even if it's a small thing. Like, there's some people who can't even boil eggs correctly. Like,
Mhm.
they mess up hard-boiled eggs every single time. So if
Mhm.
that's something you can do, you can pat yourself on the back. You're like, dang it, I may not be able to cook any damn thing else, but I could boil an egg. It's like, take take it in, like,
Yeah.
whatever it is that you do and that you do well.
Yeah.
Like, you might not be the greatest baker, but if you can cook, that's awesome.
Yeah.
Okay, so you're not so good with cleaning, but maybe you're like awesome at doing something else. It's like,
Yeah.
no one is expecting you to be perfect at everything. And so don't hold that expectation for yourself, because you'll never meet it. That's a never. You'll
Right.
never meet it.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
you
That's
just
that's
need to,
that's an impossible standard.
yeah. So you have to be, I wouldn't say, like, you have to be content with what you are, with who
Mhm.
you are. But at the
Mhm.
same time, like, don't be afraid to strive for certain things. So, for instance, if you're not the greatest cook, you can always take a class.
Absolutely.
You know, if
Mhm.
you've always wanted to jump out of an airplane, I don't know why you would do such a thing, but some people do.
Yeah.
And I
I
mean, I
was
have a
thinking the
friend who
same thing.
that was her thing. Like, on her 40th birthday, she's like, I am jumping out of a plane. I said, go ahead. Have a good
More
time. And
power
she
to you,
did.
honey.
She took her dad with her, and he's like, I had a great time. I'll never do it again, but I had a great time.
Yeah.
It's so, in other words, whatever you think you cannot do, or
Mhm.
that you're not likely to do, there's a possibility if you really want to do it, and
Mhm.
encourage yourself to do such things.
Yeah.
So if you want to go back to school to get that degree or whatever, find a way to do it.
Yeah.
If it's really what you want to do. If there's a job change you want to make, figure out a way that you can do that. I mean,
Mhm.
okay, maybe you'll need to take some classes, maybe you'll need to do some other thing. Maybe it's
Right.
not as smooth a path as you think,
Right.
but is it possible? Yes.
Mhm.
And allow yourself to be encouraged by that, and speak to yourself in a way that encourages you to continue to do what you're looking to do,
Right.
because it's what you want. Like, don't talk yourself out of something you want just because it's hard, or
Mhm.
because you don't think you can do it. There is a way.
Mhm. No, you're
That's where asking questions about everything, that's where questioning everything is so important.
yeah. Yeah, and listening too. So like for instance, recently I came out as a medium, and I've always wanted to be a medium my entire life. I thought that would be the coolest thing ever. And I'm like, how do I make that happen? Well, I have other things that are taking priority right now. I'm not there yet. Yet is key, right? If you want something, you know, understand there are some things in your life that you have to shift to make something happen. So, have things in my life shifted enough that makes it possible for me to take a course in mediumship. And I think that's absolutely key. And for me it was not, I'll never be a medium, but it's like, well, what does it take to be a medium? Well, two things I know to be true. There's probably a lot more out there, but in my limited perspective, um, we're all born intuitive. So we already have a shoe in to become a medium. We're all intuitive. So it's a matter of really using those gifts and using them consistently so that um, they're always there when you need to tap them. And then listen and pay attention to those snags. So, for instance, I think I was on a panel with both of you, and I heard one of the local mediums say, if you want to up-level your skill, go take a course with Suzanne Giesman. That was the snag I needed right then, right there. And I'm like, ooh, writing that name down. Boom, found her course, took it. And over the last couple of weeks, I have found some remarkable, copious evidence that allows me to become what I've always wanted to become. Am I the best medium? No, but not yet, right? My goal is not to become the best medium. My goal is to become a medium so that I can share healing messages from loved ones to help them heal in the future. And I also want to use the mediumship as a tool in my business to help people find the blocks that they don't know they have. And maybe it's through messages from their ancestors or their spirit guides or whatnot. So yeah, it's not impossible. There's always potential for anyone to be anything they want. It's just a matter of recognizing and deciding what it is they really do want and make the decision to go forward with it.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I find sometimes it's like not knowing where the resources are
Mhm.
to help you even know what the questions are. So having a soundboard or anyone you can talk to so they can reflect those answers or ask those other questions. It's the more we're talking, the more it's like, you know, this is becoming more and more of a thing, like ask the questions, because if you don't ask the questions, how can you get an answer? So
Right.
understanding that there is support out there, you're not alone and all that. It's just ask a question, man. Start it somewhere, start that conversation.
And the internet is a wonderful tool. Use it. Use it.
Yeah. Well, and the other thing too is that when you're coming across something, because I'm gonna introduce the divine timing here, and that is that, you might not know what the question is. And the reason
Okay.
for that is because it's not time to ask the question. Sometimes I mean, because I've had this happen where I'm like, I don't know what to do about this. I don't know what to do about this. Like, I know I want to change this. I don't know how. I don't know how. I don't know what questions to ask.
Yeah.
Right. And then, what I hear from my guides, it's like, because it's not time to be asking. Like,
Mm,
it's just time for you to kind of take a step back from it for a little bit, let the situation kind of percolate for a bit, let it cook for a bit, so to speak.
mhm.
And then when the time is right, you'll know what questions to ask, and then you'll have the answers that you need.
That's interesting.
So,
Yeah.
so sometimes you have to, but in the meantime, you can't take that divine timing aspect as, and as if it's your fault. Like, I can't do this. I can't figure it out. I must be stupid. I can't, like, what is my problem? Like, it's not an opportunity for you to beat yourself up. This is just an opportunity for you to understand that now is not the time.
Mhm.
And so you need to kind of step back and look at, okay, well, if I can't do this,
Mhm.
what can I do?
Right.
And move your attention to that thing instead and progress there until, because it's like our lives are multifaceted. It's not like, because I can't do that, I can't do anything else. It's not like that. So while this
Right.
is on hold, do this.
Mhm.
While that's on hold, okay, maybe I can shift back to this now.
Mhm.
So allow yourself that grace that not everything has to be done in your time, in your way, because you're working with the universe in
Right.
conjunction with the universe at all times,
Right.
because we are part of the universe. You're
Can I
not
just
separate from it.
Can I just interject really quickly and
Yeah.
remind everybody, don't use that as an excuse. Well, I guess it's not my time.
Yeah. Yeah. But at the same time though, like, some people get like, well, why can't I, they keep running up against this one thing, like,
Yeah.
I have to do this, I have to. It's like, no,
Mhm.
actually, it doesn't have to happen right this second. Yes, it is important. Yes, it is a priority, but
Mhm,
it doesn't have to change right this minute.
mhm.
And sometimes there's a reason why it doesn't change right this minute.
Right.
And you may not be aware of what that reason is. In fact, you may never know why it's like that.
Yeah.
But this is where you are for right now.
Mhm.
And so you need to be able to be content in the moment
Yeah.
until it changes, because it will change. Nothing is forever.
Mhm.
Nothing.
Right.
So you
Right.
just need to kind of keep rolling along in
Mhm.
whatever way you can, just so that you continue to make progress. And so support yourself with the things that the things that you say to yourself, like, okay, well, I can't do that right now, but I can do this. So let me focus on my energy over here, because this is what's giving me joy right now.
Yeah.
This is what's giving me progress right now. This is what is moving me forward in life, or making me feel like.
Right. And I think that goes to speaking to reviewing your assets, right? What's already going on in your life and enjoying what you have at the moment and then really cultivating the heck out of those assets in your life that will help the the sauce that's marinating in the background it because you keep, butting your head up against a brick wall because you want to know how to do something or how to move forward and it's not your time. And yeah, it's enjoy what you have, review your assets and work them because they're going to be a foundation for your next step.
Yeah. And
Doing
then,
those things that uplift you so that, focusing on the positive. It's, not sunshine up anybody's backside, but this is part of your reality. It's not all dark and negative, and that energy is not going to serve you, particularly in language. But looking at those things like, this is what I can do. How can I build on that? Because that's what we're doing, is building on each other. And all of this stuff is building on itself.
Yeah.
yeah, and while you're waiting, like, try not to, be careful of falling back into the trap of, like, oh my God, I must be an idiot, and I can't figure this out, and that, because we tend to berate ourselves when things don't go the way we should, and so
Mhm.
that's not helping you, like, not just in general, it's not
Mhm.
helping you, because that kind of negative self-talk is counterintuitive. It's it's counteracting everything that you're trying to do. So regardless of whatever is stalled, and think of it as, like, it's stalled. It's not stopped. It's
Mhm.
stalled.
Mhm. Like a car.
It's yeah, you've pressed pause on it, or the universe has pressed pause on it. Like, where else can you hit play?
Mhm.
And move into that kind of a thing, and don't fall into the patterns of being, telling yourself bad things, and you're like, I must be an idiot. I can't do this. I get everything wrong. I wish I was whatever.
Mhm. Mm.
um finding we need to find the positive in a perceived negative at all times, as much as possible. I mean, I'm not saying that, again, like the whole sunshine up your butt kind of thing, but you have to look at being as positive as you can in the circumstances. I mean, that doesn't mean to say that people don't get down, because everybody gets down every now and then, but, you know allow yourself to wallow for a few minutes, and then pick yourself up,
Yeah.
and then move on,
Yeah.
because you
Yeah,
need to
let's not,
move forward. Yeah.
yeah, not getting delusional about it.
Yeah.
Toxic positivity, that's a whole nother thing.
Yeah.
Yeah. And also, I think to your point, Kai, it's about yeah. I give myself the same grace. I give myself a few minutes to wallow in something, and then I'm no Pollyanna by any stretch. But then it's also a matter of saying, is there a silver lining in this? And sometimes when the universe has shut something down on me, suddenly a day later, I'm like, oh crap, that's why I wasn't supposed to do something. It's like, not taking the car out and, discovering that there was an accident or something like that, right? That I would have been in the middle of. So, yeah, I've learned now to stop and go, if this is happening and I can't go anywhere, what's the universe up to? Right? What is it up to?
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
The cunning plan.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. I mean, because we're, like, we're, we don't have the bird's eye view of everything that's happening around us. We just don't.
Yeah.
Even though some of us think we do. And there are times when you can kind of step back from something and go like, okay, what is the master plan here? And then just try to, make your choices accordingly, for the best of all concerned. But for the most part, you all you can do is the best you can do with what you have right at the moment.
Right.
And if you come at it from the most positive perspective that you're able to,
Mhm.
then the likelihood is that everything will turn out okay.
Yeah.
I mean, life is what it is, but you know attitude and perspective
Mhm.
is a huge huge thing.
Yeah. Yeah. I remember talking to other artists growing up and often hearing the refrain of, "Well, I wish I had this tool or I wish I had those paints." And it's like, yeah, that would be nice, but use what you have because you can be a brilliant artist using what you have. So when you master the tools that you have at hand, the parameters, right, the structure that says you can't move out of this because you have three tools and you have this kind of paper, what are you going to do with it? And you can get creative with the assets and the tools at hand. So yeah, totally agree on that.
Yeah, the other thing that I've heard in the past is it's that kind of thing about I'll be happy when,
Mm, hmm.
that. And and I've caught myself saying stuff like that, like, well, I would do better at this if I had this thing, or if I had that tool, or if I could do this or whatever. And I'm like,
I have another short story. Back when I was learning how to shoot pool, and we were using the sticks from the bar room, and the sticks were all warped and everything. It's like, I wish I had a better stick. I wish I had my own stick. So I went out and bought my own stick for 36 bucks. Great little stick. But the story in that is that when we would stand around the bar room and lament about the fact that we didn't have good pool cues, somebody shared a story with me about a famous female pool shark. She's like, "You do not need a good stick to shoot billiards." She took a broomstick, a broom from the corner, and she wiped the table with that broom handle. And I'm like, okay, I stand corrected. I just need to up level my skill set with no matter what stick I have in my hand. There are at least 15 forms of humor. Some of them we want to cover today. The first three that I think we want to chat about is defensive humor, deflector humor, and then, of course, the unifier. That's the fun loving approach that brings everybody in together, in on the joke, that's not malicious. There's also nonsense humor, there's witty humor, and of course, there's irony and satire. There are lots of other forms of humor, but I think we could start with those today.
Yeah, let's look at that. Let's dive in and define defensive humor. Somebody has told me I used it as a defense mechanism to avoid looking at stuff, to avoid doing things when in fact I do deep work. And I don't know. I don't think I feel called out here, but I think this is really worthy of some more conversation. Let's define defensive humor.
Well, do you think that there was a scenario where, let's say you had five things to work on and you've already worked on the first floor and you're out of spoons to work on the fifth, you're not there yet, and somebody called you out on it and you're like, yeah, thanks for that. What was it? Something like that?
The more I think about it, it's more I think it was somebody who would impose their energy on me. They
Mm,
would dive in and do stuff.
mm,
So we all know that that's not okay. It
right.
was unsolicited.
Oh,
So, and it's like, okay, so she's not resonant. That person's not resonant with me. And that statement did make me go and look and see, is this used as a defense mechanism, like to get me out of something? And no, it's not. There are many times I've used humor to dive deeper into a situation or to make that connection with somebody to help them relax into what we're doing because I understand some of these problems that are presented to me. And as a person relaxes into it,
mm,
they're more open to receiving whatever information we have. And so humor not so much defensive, but in general can help to have somebody shift into it. So defensive, now I've got to look it up and go and see what that's about.
Well, sometimes humor can be defensive in that, there are times when people will use humor as a way to avoid looking at something that's deeper. I
Mhm,
mean, in your case, that's not true.
mhm,
But I mean, that's a lot of times people will do that. Like look at it as, like it's both defensive and a deflector because it's like, you make it humorous so that you can actually distract from, whatever the real issue is. But it can also be used as a
That's the word.
defense in terms of when someone is coming at you regarding something that you don't want to discuss
mhm,
because number one, either it's not their business or it's just not the time or place for it, or you just don't want to discuss that with this person for
mhm,
whatever reason.
mhm.
Then yeah, you will, sometimes people will use humor as a defense to just kind of as a almost as a like a nice way of saying, yeah, we're not talking about this right now. So it's a response
Mhm.
that's not rude in
Right.
saying this is none of your business and I don't want to talk about it.
Yeah.
So
Yeah. Good
it's a
point.
perfectly legitimate defense.
Mhm, mhm.
I like that you use the word distract because that could be when it's not helpful um, to use it as a means to distract away. But yeah, you're right. Sometimes it's just not somebody's, it's not their something they should be concerned about or that is even their concern. But rather than tell them to take a flying leap, you can just use that humor. But I do feel that defensive and deflective can be very much interrelated,
Yeah.
interconnected.
Yeah.
Yeah, because it,
So
it depends upon the situation, I think, because if you're in a situation where someone's being aggressive, then yeah, you can get defensive about it and you can easily deflect it. And that's a way of kind of dismissing the situation.
Mhm.
And then of course, there are those situations where you can use humor to kind of bring everybody in.
Right.
So it's like humor has the ability to both separate and to bring people together.
Mhm.
And really what we
yeah,
want to focus on is the part where it brings people together, makes people feel good, and helps build community around each of us because that's really what we want.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
yeah, so humor has the ability to shift things, shift the energy for sure. Like if something's really tense and you make a joke or something, and that kind of like allows the air to release, right? And everybody just kind of
it
relax
does.
and then and when you have a humorous type of situation that again brings everybody in, allows people to feel like they're accepted, and there's no exclusion.
Right.
So that's what we want.
Yeah. That was the
It's
point I was going to make, which was the unifying humor aspect does help to bring in everybody and make it inclusive. And for me, what I find is I like to use humor, especially around new people who don't know me and they're trying to assess who I am as a personality because a lot of people find me very stoic and buttoned up, and I am that way only for a few minutes, and then I'll break the ice and they're like, "Oh, I didn't see that coming." And I'm like, "No." And who knows? Maybe it's for me, it's an ingrained setup, it's the, set and spike moment for me. Maybe that's my MO and I just didn't know it until this very moment. But when I had my shop, I would find a lot of people would walk in and they would have this shield up. I'd say, "Hey, welcome to my shop." And they're like, yep, yep, sure. Okay. And I'm like, "I just wanted to let you know that I'm the maker here. And I make everything in my shop and it features my art." And they'd go, "Oh, okay. Well, I'm not here to buy anything." And I'm like, "And I'm not here to pressure you. It's okay. Just take a look around, but I just wanted to kind of let you know what's going on in this shop. And so everything you see, everything you touch, I made, or my husband." "Oh, okay, thanks." So then eventually they would get to the novelty section, which would be my wine and my beer leather totes. And they'd pull off the wine tote and they're like, "Oh, this is beautiful." And I'm like, "Yeah, you can also get it custom engraved. So that way you can keep your friends as friends and you don't turn them into frenemies." Suddenly they're like, "Oh, yeah, that's a really great idea." And suddenly I could see their whole body composure just relax and open up. That shield disappeared, and they're like, oh, okay. And you could see it. I mean, their chest opened up, their arms stopped, covering their body, and they were open. And they're like, oh, so tell me more about this. And they knew that I wasn't there to pressure them. So yeah, it was a
Right.
depressuring tool that I would use to help move them along.
Humor is a great leveler.
Mhm.
It just brings it all in. This weekend, that somebody was asking a question, and I started talking to answer their question, and then I realized that I was kind of rambling, and so I finally looked at them and I said, "I don't know if I said anything useful there, but it got a laugh, and it let her realize that I could sometimes be full of it, but, she worked and she found somebody and that was all cool, but to bring everybody together in that way, that's like, yeah, okay, I kind of said what some people were thinking, and that's not bad."
Yeah.
Yeah. It's like I actually sometimes use humor to kind of break up, an intense type of thing. So sometimes when I do readings, my client is, we're talking about like really serious things, and they're sitting there and they're getting really tense, and I mean, not necessarily with dread or just anticipation, just like looking at their situations in a deep dive kind of deal. And then what I'll do is, like, I'll crack a joke in the middle of it regarding something that's part of the reading, and then that just kind of allows that person to like take a breath. It breaks up the tension of the situation, and me reinforcing that, yeah, this might be your situation, and yeah, it might be heavy duty, but you know what? It's not the end of the world. And,
Right.
it's going to be, you have to take those moments where you can. So that's
Mhm.
what I use it for a lot of
Mhm.
times.
Mhm.
Yeah.
Yeah, there's a channel I watch on YouTube called Charisma on Command. So if anybody watching us and wants to know
Yeah.
how to use humor in everyday language to help lighten the mood and not be taken so seriously, Charlie has hundreds of videos on how to do that. So that's a great channel that I'd recommend.
Yeah.
But let's talk about how humor can also be cloaked and disguised. Like chiding remarks and so forth can be cloaked as humor, and that can be very toxic, and that can go down a slippery slope pretty quickly. I know that
Mhm.
some of the first steps into that slippery slope is the self-deprecating humor. It's one thing to use that every now and again, but if we use that too much, we find that, again, as I mentioned earlier, when you're talking out loud about yourself, your body feels it. Those vibrations turn around and come back into your body, and your body's like, oh, okay, we're doing this now. And over time, it starts to become natural. And I don't want that for you. Um, I remember my partner, I would catch him in the past using all kinds of self deprecating phrases about himself. And when I learned about how the body absorbs all that it said, especially out loud, out of our own mouths, it really does bury deep inside our self conscious. And over time, our disapproving opinions hook themselves into our brain and asserts themselves as fact. And these facts can become our reality. It's an
Mhm.
insidious cycle. What I wanted to do also is share the word abracadabra. Both of you have heard the word. Abracadabra is defined as I will create as I speak. We create our own
Yeah.
realities. Susie, you have a story about this.
Yeah, about toxic humor, and this is a real flashpoint. As we were doing this pre-work for this, we started talking about those folks who say something so mean and then say, "Just kidding."
Mm,
And that, oh, I know, I can feel the energy shift there, but I've experienced that from people who were like, said they were so spiritual and yet they would use that. And I object to that greatly. And that's probably a whole nother thing about the energy behind words. I
mm,
had a direct experience once when somebody, I guess you could call it gallows humor or whatever, but I was in line for a mammogram during my cancer experience, and they call out a name and they use your first name. And so in the medical community, I'm known as Susan. But they called Susan, and two of us stood up. And I said, "Oh, which one do you mean?" So they said Susie G. And I said, "Oh, that's me. I win." And this Debbie Downer is sitting behind me, and I could hear her growl, or maybe not. And I had to walk forward. That was a situation when I could not look at her and tell her to piss off or, this is my reality. I'm working on my reality because I would have lunged at her. I would have just, and I get so flustered when I get that emotional and
Mhm.
angry that I can't be coherent. The technician probably heard a bit about that, I might say, when I was in that particularly vulnerable position. But it's just, I'm not
God.
everybody's humor is the same as yours. I know folks who say, "Oh, I just have a dark humor." And it's like, okay, I get it, but I don't have to accept that energy because the self-deprecating humor can be so freaking exhausting.
Yeah.
And there are times, somebody says, "Oh, I'm so fat." And I finally said, "Well, yeah, you are." And she was astounded. And I'm like, what do you want? You know, I'm not here to build you up. I feel that this is all our own path. And bringing that awareness to what we say is that's like 9/10 of everything we do. When you
Mhm.
bring that awareness
Mhm.
and can shift that energy as you're working.
Mhm.
We're going to talk about intentions next week and how language impacts intention. When you can shift that energy around it, you can shift so much of your outcome. And that I'm feeling a lot of passion coming up over this. This is why I'm glad we broke this up over these 3 weeks.
Yeah.
So it's listen how you talk to yourself. And I think that's the first thing about all of this that we're saying.
Yeah, and to your point, Susie, I don't think that was humor that she was sharing with you. And the second point is about dark humor. I'm into dark humor. That's sometimes how I get through life. Only when appropriate, though, right? Only when appropriate. And I
Yes.
only use it in intimate conversations with me and my husband, or when I get to know the two of you better, I might share a little bit more of it, only when appropriate. Um,
It's got a place. It definitely
yeah.
has a place. I was hooked up to an IV pole and I started dancing with it. So I tell folks about it. It's like, yeah, I started pole dancing when I had cancer. I got mixed up in the lines though, and people are like, what? So it's appropriate. There are times that it's appropriate, and I don't
Yeah.
condemn it at all
Yeah. Yeah.
because no, it's just time it just goes
Yeah.
right over my head.
Yeah.
That's okay.
Yeah. But the third example I wanted to bring up is I hate doing this to her, my mother-in-law, but she was classic about misassigning the energy behind the words and phrases that she would use. I remember being at her house one day. My husband and I were out in her yard doing something for her. And she came out, instead of saying, "Hey, what's up, guys?" It was, "What's your problem?" I got really incensed because she had said that several times throughout the years. And I'm like, we don't have a problem. We're just here doing X, Y, and Z. So I'd really appreciate it if you could kind of tweak your salutation when you come into a group like this, because it sets a really bad tone.
Yeah. Yeah, it can throw off everything, but that's hard sometimes. No, it's not hard. You need to see how it's impacting other people. That's that cluelessness, that narcissism, where you just say the things you blurt and you don't look at what the impact is.
Yeah. And
True, you
listen.
can't police how somebody responds, but when somebody does respond,
Mhm.
look at that.
Yeah, exactly. Listen to the reactions and the impacts that you're making, and be considerate, right? That's
Mhm.
all.
Yeah, my
Um,
response to something like that would have been like, so what's your problem? I'd be like, you.
yeah, yeah. Internally, that's probably what I was saying, but I'm just like, "Ugh, I'm tired of this. Let's knock this off.
Yep.
Let's talk about it," because she had many times saying that, and I'd internalize it. I'd internalize it. I'd internalize it, and that's not fair to me either. So, yeah, yeah.
And that's why,
Okay.
wording is so, so, so important.
Hmm. Hmm.
And, so we have to look at when you make a sentence and you say no, but,
Hmm. Hmm.
or yes, and,
Right.
all all those little caveats that you're putting in, sometimes they're good, sometimes they're not so good. So you need to figure out when they're appropriate, when to use them, and when they're going to be the best for you.
Right.
And then, and we're going to talk about this a little bit later or in the next couple of episodes, when you're using words, when you're searching for beliefs,
Hmm.
word choice matters
Hmm.
because you can get into lots of opposite or opposing sentences and, opposing beliefs, and you don't realize you think that they're going to be counteracting each other, but they don't. And it's all because of the words that you use and the situations where they come up.
Hmm.
So you have to pay attention to the words that you're using and what they mean.
Right.
A lot of times people will use words just because they think they understand what it means without really understanding what it means.
Right.
So if you're going to use a word, like there's a particular word that you use all the time,
Mhm.
look it up
Yeah.
and see what it really means.
Yeah.
And think to yourself, like, is this a word I really want to continue using or not?
Right.
And I'm not talking about words like, that I keep saying all the time, but words that have meaning, such
Right.
as, I'm not intelligent, or I'm not smart, or I'm not whatever the adjective is.
Hmm.
Look it up. And
Right.
if that is if that's not true, then stop saying those words.
Hmm.
Like,
Exactly.
evaluate what you say.
Exactly. My biggest burr under my saddle is when somebody says, "Oh, I'm not creative," and I'm like, "We're all creative. You may mistake being an artist. I'm not artistic. That's different than being creative, but we're all creative." So yeah, totally,
Mhm.
Kaya.
It shows up in a whole number of ways. Sorry, I keep giggling, Kai, when you're talking about look at the words you're using, and immediately I hear Wallace Shawn going, inconceivable. Do not think that word means what you think it means.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
I had to get that separated out so we could do someplace else.
Thank you.
To tie in with that though, questioning, that's where questioning everything is becomes really more, I don't want to say crucial, but it becomes really important in your process is questioning that word, questioning that. But it's also really easy to get wrapped around the axle about figuring out the exact word that's
Mhm.
going to do the exact thing. I would get analysis paralysis over affirmation. So
Mhm.
this is all about growing and questioning and asking what's for your highest and best.
Right. Right. And I think that when you do discover a word that is inappropriate to the context and inappropriate to your actual intention, then it's a matter of neutralizing it. Was reading the other day, shoot, and I'm sorry I don't remember his name, but he used the word neutralize, as in neutralize the energy behind what he was saying. So he admitted, and I'm sure we've all done this, we've said something negative about somebody else, right? And there goes the energy towards that person. That person doesn't deserve that. And so when you catch yourself doing that, you can neutralize it. And just by using the word neutralize to neutralize the energy that's going towards that person or that situation or whatever is happening, just stop by and go, oh, that's not good. Neutralize, neutralize, neutralize. And suddenly, even as I say it now, I can feel the energy around me just kind of shift. And it kind of swirls around me, not like a dust devil, but just kind of like something hitting the ground and the dust just goes poof. And I love the way that feels. So that
Yeah,
might be a
that
tool.
early on in my journey, I learned about cancel, 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 delete, delete, delete. And
Mhm.
then you're filling it in with love, love, love. So
Mhm.
you get really fast with that. So yeah, but neutralize is a single word. Neutralize then doesn't necessarily mean you have to fill in, does it?
No, I guess you don't.
Cool.
Yeah, so whichever method works for you, then, that's what you do. Because yeah, I was taught to cancel, delete, delete as well. But yeah, I didn't realize about the backfill. I never thought about that. Yeah, I never had that part of it. So that's interesting. That's interesting.
It sounds like, as you said that, Susie and Kai, the backfill for me reminds me of the times I've had energy work done, right? Where you're cutting cords and there's that space there that you fill. And I can see it's kind of fun to watch the vernacular do a 360 in my world going, oh, that's where that comes from. That's really cool. So
Yeah.
Yeah, so now on to
Okay.
our closing thoughts, I believe. Sarcasm is lost on the universe. Like absolutely lost. I mean, as humor, we love it. I personally love it. Um, but for the universe, when you say something like thanks for that,
mhm.
that is a form of ingratitude. Because all the universe hears is thanks.
Mhm.
And, which means whatever you were being sarcastic about,
Mhm.
you actually get more of.
Right.
So be careful of that. The whole purpose of this episode is that we are not looking to police your thoughts, and we don't expect you to either. Everybody has like thoughts that are not the best, but when you catch yourself, change it.
Mhm.
Change it up, make it positive, neutralize it,
Mhm.
or, and don't forget that no is a complete sentence. So if something comes at you that you do not want and that you do not accept in terms of words, you can just say no.
Mhm.
We want you to be mindful, to pay attention to what's happening around you, to what you say, what you think, and what others say to you.
Mhm.
And so if someone says to you, "Oh, I'm sorry, you're just not as pretty as her," you can just not choose to take that in.
Mhm.
Or you can, find a different way to say that. Like, okay, well, maybe I'm not as pretty as her, but I bet I'm smarter than she is. Or some other, like find a way to kind of deflect that so that it's taking the negative and turning it into a positive.
Right.
Pay attention to how you speak to yourself, how you speak about yourself, and how you speak about others.
Mhm. Mhm.
Um,
Yeah.
So
That's
looking for a more empowered way to say it. So
yeah.
I like the word empowered. I'm trying not to overuse it, but yeah, we're looking to empower ourselves and each other.
right. So that we can find the courage to move forward every day. And when you find the courage to do that, you're going to build your self confidence and ultimately your self worth because you're worthy as you are.
Okay, so today we've covered the power of language and so many other things that are so useful in every moment. And we hope we've given you something to think about, to look for, and to consider. Next time, we're going to move on to crafting intentions so they work more effectively for you.
Mm.
Meanwhile, we ask you to consider to take Kai's course on shielding at handsonfire.buzz, or you can listen to my podcasts at bluelightninghealing.com. And Lisa also has her 2023 digital calendar, and that includes moon phase planning to help you move forward in your life and your business. And you can find those at co-createmagic.com.
You've been watching the Mystic Mosaic podcast. Hit the like button if you found this episode helpful. Don't forget to subscribe and click that notification bell to be notified when we upload a new video. It helps the algorithm to share this episode with people who want to learn more about this topic.
Look for a new episode from us every Thursday and join the conversation. Tell us in the comment section what you liked about the episode. If there's a topic you would like us to cover, let us know. Thanks for watching. Until next time, stay grounded, shielded, and magical.